crafters. It's Chris from Crafts with Chris, and thank you very much for going to my online shop and making a purchase using the current host code or buying this card class outright from me. So you should receive in the mail from me a packet which would include 6 cards, 3 different designs. You'll get all of the materials to make the cards, but you will not receive any of the stamped images. So you do not need the current stamp set that I am using for this card class. Any of your stamp sets would work, but the stamp set I am using does coordinate very well with the materials I'm using. Inside your card packet, you also will find a PDF, which will list all of the materials used in making the cards and the different sizes. So if you want to recreate them, you'll have that. I also will leave the link of this video in that PDF. So let's go ahead and get started with this card class. Today's card class is Pretty Pumpkins. So I am using the stamp set and the dies to create this card class. So let's get started with card number 1. This is card number 1. So let's go ahead and pull out your stuff for this card. So we're going to go ahead and take out the pale papaya. That's the only one we're going to be stamping on today. So you will need 2 different colors to create this card. I'm using Evening Evergreen and Pale Papaya. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in the Evening Evergreen. And in your stamp set, you have this vine, and then you have So Thankful for You. So we're going to stamp with those 3 items today. So I'm going to start with the larger vine. So you have the smaller one and the larger one. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp this right in the corner, the bottom of the pale papaya. And then I'm going to take this little vine and I'm going to stamp that over in the other corner. So it looks like that. So I'm going to bring in that So Thankful for You, but I just want So Thankful on my card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Post-it note. I'm going to kind of rip it in half. And then I'm going to cover up that 4. And then I'm going to cover up that U with the Post-it note. And then there's that little bit still showing. So I'm just going to take a piece of Scotch tape and just put it across there. I know some people do cut their stamps. I don't like to cut my stamps. So that will cover everything up, and then you just want to go ahead and ink up your stamp, and then you can just pull that right off. So the only thing is inked up is So Thankful. Before we put that down, I want to take the little pumpkin that you have in there, and I want that pumpkin to kind of fall in between those vines. So I just want to make sure I know where I'm going to stamp my So Thankful. So I'm going to stamp it over here so it doesn't interfere with that pumpkin. Now that this is stamped, we're going to do some coloring. So you're going to need your Pale Papaya and your Evening Evergreen. So I'm going to go ahead and just squeeze the center of the ink pad. And then when you open it up, it'll give you a color palette. And then you're going to do the same thing for Pale Papaya. So it'll leave that ink in there so you can color with this. So I'm using the water painters. I'm going to use the smallest tipped brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of this ink. So I'm going to just drip some of this water down. I'm going to drip it off to the side because I don't want a ton of water. So there we go. So we have a little bit of water. So I'm going to take some of that water and kind of mix it in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to color this big leaf here. And it depends on how dark and on how intense you want this leaf to look. I'm going really light with it. And then I'm going to come over to the 3 leaves here. I'm going to leave that little one. And I'm going to leave this leaf, and I'm going to color these two leaves the same process. So if you find that your water is running out, you can just, you know, put some more water in there. Less is more, so that's why I always try to put my water off to the side so I can add it in when I need it. Sometimes if you don't do that, sometimes you get too much water in there, but we're just going to go ahead and color in. So then once I have my leaves fully colored in here, I'm going to take and I'm going to pick up some of this ink without much water, and I'm going to follow these little vines as best as I can. They're very little, so once I'm done with that coloring there, I'm going to take this water painter, and I'm just going to run it off to the side of my paper until it runs clear. So once it's clear, then I'm going to pick up some of this pale papaya. I'm going to do the same thing, put my water off to the side, and then I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to color in this flower. And I love the way the early evergreen kind of mixes in with the pale papaya. So before I put these away, I'm going to still use the evening evergreen. So I'm going to set that to the side, but I want to show you guys how I take care of my ink pads when I use them for coloring. I just take a baby wipe and I'll just wipe down the inside of the top, and then I'll close it up and it'll be good to go for the next project. So I'm going to leave my baby wipe out to do that for the evening evergreen. For this next part, you want to make sure that your work area here, you don't have anything out that you don't want to get ink on, because this part's going to be a little messy. So I'm going to take some of this water out again, and I'm going to pick up some of this ink here, and I'm going to really, it's pretty intense there. So then what I'm going to do is put my finger out, and I'm just going to flick onto that pale papaya that we just stamped on. So it gives it little flecks of this evening evergreen. So it's up to you how much you want. I think that is plenty right there. So that's all I did. Again, like I said, with this here, go ahead and run it clear. Once it runs clear, you can put your cap back on and you're good to go. So again, the baby wipes, I'm gonna clean off that lid, and we are all done for our stamping. So we're bringing back in all of our pieces here, and we're gonna start to assemble this card. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take the basic gray, and yours will be scored, and we're gonna go ahead and just fold that on the score line and then give it a good crease. This piece of designer series paper is going to layer right on the front. So you just want to use some Stampin' Seal to put that on the front of your card, or any adhesive you have on hand. And this one here is going to get layered on the front. I already have some Stampin' adhesive on the back. The camera was not on when I applied it, so you're going to layer that right on the front just like that. I take this piece of basic white, and this is going to go on the inside of the card. And this pumpkin here, we're going to use Stampin' Dimensionals on. I'm using the mini Stampin' Dimensionals. If you don't have the minis, then you could use the bigger ones, but you'd need to cut them. So I'm going to pop this up right over those vines. Just like that. I have these leaves here. So the first leaf that I have is the Evening Evergreen. I'm going to bring in my liquid glue here just because it's just easier to work with. So this leaf is going to go right on your pumpkin, wherever you want to put it. And then these guys are going to kind of just put on your pumpkin too, wherever. To finish this card off, you'll have these brushed, you'll have some of these brushed metallic adhesive dots, and you just want to go ahead, and I've given you 3 for each card, so you'll get a variety of colors. So you just want to go ahead and just pop them on your card someplace. So that is it to card number 1. I think this one is my favorite. It's a tie between this one and the 3rd card. So this is card number 2. So let's get our materials out to make that card. So there's only one thing we're stamping. There's a piece of basic white in there. We're going to do our stamping first. And we're going to use Blackberry Bliss to stamp with. So in your stamp set, you have this gathered together. That's what I'm going to stamp on that piece of basic white. So I'm going to set that aside to let that dry up. And that's it for our stamping. So let's bring in the rest of our elements here. First thing I'm going to do is fold our card base in half. Yours will be pre-scored. Use your bone folder to give it a good crease. So in there you'll find this piece of designer series paper. We're going to glue that to the front of our card with some Stampin' Seal. And I am using this side. And in here you'll find 2 pumpkins and all these little vines and fun stuff here. So what I did for you guys was this pumpkin here is very hard to glue. So I actually used one of the adhesive sheets on the back. So you just want to peel that backing off. Your pumpkin may look like this. It's hard to get those little pieces out because they're stuck to this paper. But once you peel this, those pieces should all fall out. And if they don't, you can just poke them out, but you can see how they're all falling out. So this pumpkin is going to be put on the bottom here. Now, before you put this completely down, we're going to put some of those leaves behind it, some of these leaves and vines. So, and this one here, I'm going to do... This one I'm just going to kind of eyeball before I put that down. But you have these big viney leaves things here. And what I did was I actually cut these. You can do whatever you want to do with them if you want to put them back there whole. I just found that they seem to do better when I cut them. So I'm just going to kind of cut the little pieces here. And then... cut these little stems off, and then you can figure out where you want to pop these in. And I don't believe I used a whole stem for these. So here I have them cut. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the soft suede one. Oops. Start up here. So once you have these guys cut, then you can kind of arrange these behind here. And what I'll do is I'll use my liquid glue. And I'm not going to put the glue on the tops of the leaves. I'm just going to kind of glue them at the bottom because I want these leaves to kind of pop out behind the pumpkins, if that makes sense. So you just want to play around and figure out what looks best and where you want to put them. And that liquid glue is very strong, so you really don't have to worry about it coming up. So then you have these other pieces in here. So I'm going to stick one of these behind here. I have some, you can see I have some of that glue on there. If you have one of those anti-stick bags for embossing, after that glues, you can go over that and then that will not be sticky. Or if you have, which may not work too well, but if you had a eraser, an adhesive eraser, you could use that too, but that might actually rip some of the stuff. So you probably would be better off with the anti-stick powder if you have it. So I'm just gonna glue another leaf stem here. And then one of these little ones here. And then this pumpkin here, I'm going to put some liquid glue on it and kind of do the same thing. I'm not going to stick it all the way down. So it's up a little bit. I got the bottom stuck down, and then you're just going to layer these leaves behind that pumpkin. And you just want to be careful when you're doing this so that these don't stick off the side when you go to mail it. So once you have that done, then we can go ahead and finish putting this card together. So your piece of basic white, of course, will go on the inside of your card. And then your piece that you stamped, we're going to glue that to this piece of Blackberry Bliss, so it'll give it enough of a border. And then this is going to go right here on the front of your card. So, and I didn't pop it up. You could if you wanted to. I just layered it flat. And that's it to card number 2. Just make sure you press your pumpkins down once you're all finished. So that's card number 2. So this is card number 3. We're going to bring in all our pieces for card number 3. And you're going to go ahead and fold your card base in half on the score line. So with this, you're going to want to take out the larger vine. And I'm going to use Versamark ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink this up, and then I'm just going to go around the whole front of my card with this vine. And I'm just going to go around just the edge. So it'll look like this. You have that nice watermark around the outside edge of your card. And then that is it for our stamping. So now it's just a matter of assembling our card. So you have this piece of Coastal Cabana, and you're going to want to put that on the front of your card with some Stampin' Seal. And that layers up nicely to show those vines underneath. So then you have your piece of basic white. So we're going to layer that up on the inside of our card. And then you have this scalloped edged basic black. This is going to go in the center, just like so. Then you have this piece of basic white. Before we glue that down, we're going to take our ribbon and we're going to run that ribbon right in the center of that. So again, I'm just going to use the Stampin' Seal. I'm going to do the wrap it around the back. And then this will go right on the front. And then you have these 2 pumpkins. So what I did was, I'm going to use some liquid glue on this. And I'm just going to put a little bit in the centers of these pumpkin pieces here. Then you're going to take it and put it on top of the basic black, but you're going to offset it. So that black shows through. It's almost like a shadow on that pumpkin. So it looks something like that. So isn't that cool how that effect looks? And then what I'm going to do is, you have these 2 cinnamon cider leaves. Before, I'm going to use my liquid glue again, and I'm going to put a little dab of that on one and put it right behind this pumpkin. Make sure it sticks. Then I'm going to do a little bit on the second leaf. And I'm going to put that right behind there. And I'm going to use some dimensionals to kind of pop this right up on the front of the card. And I am using the large size dimensionals this time. Just make sure there's no openings in those pumpkins where you put those dimensionals. And then this is going to go right here, right over that ribbon. Oops. just like that. And then you'll have some more of these brushed metallic dots, and you'll have a copper one for this. I just thought any of them will go well with this, but I just liked the look of the copper on the middle of that. And that is it to card number 3. Those are the cards for this card class. So I hope you guys enjoyed this card class, and I look forward to our next card class together.